To throw further perspective onto this developing story, we are joined in by our correspondent from Tehran, Maral Gulumpour, joining us. Maral, how is Iran reacting to this announcement by Saudi Arabia? What is the media saying at this point?
Hello and good afternoon. Well, the news just came out this morning and Iran's dailies are expected to report on this tomorrow. But online outlets and media agencies are picking this up. For instance, Iran's international channel, Press TV, provided a linkage between this event and Michael Flynn's role in the so-called Trump-Russia collusion case. As you know, reports have recently came out accusing U.S. President Donald Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, of secretly promoting Russian nuclear power technology in Saudi Arabia. But the broader argument in Iran is the irregularities in Saudi Arabia's decision to develop nuclear plants. It can be perceived by some as part of the plan called Saudi Vision 2030, which is a plan to reduce Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil and private space. But this extraction, uranium extraction,
Mara, I will just come back to you now. This is against the backdrop of a nuclear crisis. Saudi Arabia is planning to extract its own uranium as part of its nuclear power program. Saudi officials have said the benefits of the move are multifold, ranging from achieving self-sufficiency in producing atomic fuel as well as for economic development. However, the head of the Saudi agency tasked with nuclear plans did not say if Saudi Arabia also plans to enrich and reprocess uranium, which are both sensitive steps as they can allow uranium to be used for military purposes. Saudi Arabia is the world's biggest oil exporter and has said it wants to tap atomic power solely for peaceful purposes and to diversify its energy supply. Saudi Arabia would be the third country in the Gulf Arab region to tap nuclear power after Israel and the United Arab Emirates, which is set to start up its first South Korean-built reactor in 2018. The Saudi move is being seen against the backdrop of the Iranian nuclear program. Let's go back across to our correspondent from Tehran, Maral Gulumpour, joining us for more on this. Maral, as you were just telling us, the latest on how these developments are being viewed by the media there.
Yes, as I was saying, there is, great arguments, pointing at the questionable strategy by Saudi Arabia. So first thing is that mining uranium in Saudi Arabia doesn't seem like a viable economic plan because Saudi Arabia doesn't have a major uranium reserve in comparison to other countries, and low concentrations of low-grade uranium makes it a costly venture. On top of that, Saudi Arabia just recently set up joint investment fund for development of uranium mining in another country, in Jordan, in May of 2017. So Jordan is the 16th biggest uranium reserve in the world, and maybe Saudi Arabia could have already get standard amounts of higher-grade uranium for cheaper from Jordan, where it has already invested. And second is that Saudi Arabia is launching this initiative at a time where there are better options available and other countries are turning to green and renewable energy, which is more efficient and cost-effective. And the same criticism for developing nuclear plants towards Iran during the nuclear plant controversies. So, nuclear power, they discussed that nuclear power is dangerous, it's dirty, it's expensive, and it's ironic. When Iran was developing its nuclear power plant, all the argument on an international level was that there is no logic for investment in nuclear power, suggesting that Iran may have alternative motivations, for instance, to develop nuclear arms. But now that the same countries that banned and accused Iran, which are allies of Saudi Arabia, are silent and maybe even assisting the country to develop nuclear plants, in Iran, these actions and double standards are perceived as an act of hypocrisy by some Western countries.
All right, Maral, and do they also welcome the UN aid, which has reached them? Sorry, I beg your pardon. We are also, of course, looking at the reactions coming in from the world over. But give us a sense of also how, apart from the local media reports, what are the reactions that we're getting from the world over?
Well, you see, Iran and Saudi Arabia have been entangled in a regional rivalry, and media has extensively reported on this. However, this growing political rivalry has been expanding to every aspect of two societies. At the moment, some foreign media are praising Saudi Arabia for taking these measures, but again, this measure is tainted by politics so much so that it has also raised so many questions. For instance, Saudi Arabian crown prince have taken several measures within the past months, and it has been reflected in various ways in different media. For instance, he has established social reforms to introduce a more moderate Islam. He's also trying to renew infrastructures of Saudi Arabia, and these new laws allow for hopefully better quality of life in Saudi Arabia. But when you think that these reforms are happening from top to bottom, and how there is potential of these plans backlash against the regime when it is implied in a traditional society, then you will see that how it could affect the social and political fabric of Saudi Arabia in the near future.
Maral, also, is there a feeling in Iran that the Saudi nuclear program may not be restricted to just energy generation and may also soon lead to nuclear weapons?
Well, yes, that could be a concern, but like I said, you see, at the moment, growing political rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia is expanding to every aspect of two societies. It's not only military or economic or the fear of nuclear arms, it's even social and cultural domains of each country which is being affected and harmed. For instance, when Saudi Crown Prince introduced reforms for Saudi women, these new laws, for instance, allow Saudi women to drive and to enter sports stadiums, and several Saudi women were appointed as ministers and members of cabinet, which is unprecedented and also very commendable. But this comes right during a time when in Iran, for instance, women rights movements are aspiring and striving to secure more liberty and right for Iranian women, and they are making very slow progress. And it is happening in a context where some Iranians consider themselves as, and their societies to be inherently and historically more progressive than Saudi Arabia. So it is disheartening for many Iranians to see, while they are fighting to make reforms from bottom to top, their neighbor is making milestones overnight in social domains, or even arms and economic and the military and other areas. And we know that, like I said, how top to bottom reforms can somehow backlash in traditional societies, because that is exactly what caused Iranian Islamic Revolution in 1979, about 37 years ago. So a primary result of this rivalry in Iran on social level has been